John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, or most often referred to as J.R.R. Tolkien, was what some would say was the most groundbreaking and influential fantasy fiction writer of all time. With best-selling titles such as The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings trilogy, Tolkien has created a world called Middle-earth for fans to explore and enjoy. Now let's take a dive into Tolkien's life while he was in Oxford. We will travel to the schools where he taught at, the pubs where he would drink and write with his closest friends, his home where he spent nearly 17 years writing The Lord of the Rings, and even the cemetery where he is now laid to rest. The Eagle and the Child lays claim to a number of interesting literary connections. J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and other fellow writers met here and dubbed themselves the Inklings. They nicknamed the pub The Bird and the Baby. A public house since 1650, the Eagle and the Child takes its name from the crest of the Earls of Derby. During the Civil War, the building was used as a playhouse for the Royalist soldiers. The Inklings was an informal literary discussion group associated with the University of Oxford, England, for nearly 2 decades between the early 1930s and late 1949. They were literary enthusiasts who praised the value of narrative in fiction and encouraged the writing of fantasy. From late 1933, they met on Thursday evenings at Lewis's college room at Magdalen College, where they would read and discuss various materials, including their unfinished manuscripts. These meetings were accompanied with more informal lunchtime gatherings at various Oxford pubs, which then turned into a regular meeting held on Mondays or Tuesdays at lunchtime at the Eagle and the Child. These meetings were held in the private lounge at the back of the pub, known as the Rabbit Room. Taking a trip through town, whether by bus or bicycle, you can find a small narrow street called Brewer Street. This street will lead you to the fort-like walls of Pembroke College. Founded in 1624, Pembroke College is concentrated in its traditional site in the center of Oxford, but it has a fine new building on the Thames, as well as its own renovated graduate facilities close by the college. The main site is particularly attractive, being primarily built between the 17th and 19th centuries with Cotswold stone. J.R.R. Tolkien was a Fellow of Pembroke from 1925 to 1945, and wrote The Hobbit and the first 2 books of The Lord of the Rings during his time here. Just down the street you will find Merton College, which has a castle-like design to it and a beautiful stone courtyard in the center. Merton College was founded in 1264. It is one of the 3 ancient Oxford colleges founded in the 13th century. The college buildings, set in extensive gardens and grounds, are of exceptional historical and aesthetic interest. The library is probably the oldest surviving working library in the United Kingdom. The hall, chapel, and lodge also date from the college's early years. From 1945 to 1959, Tolkien was professor of the English language and literature at Merton College. Once a year, the college offers a day-long symposium that focuses on different aspects of J.R.R. Tolkien's academic and literary work, and his life in Oxford. Still situated in its original location on Turl Street, Exeter College was founded in 1314 by Walter D. Stapleton of Devon, the Bishop of Exeter and later treasurer to Edward III, who intended it as a school to educate clergy. When 19-year-old Tolkien came to Oxford University in 1911, he lived in Exeter College and studied in the college's Victorian library. It was here that he first conceived some of the ideas that were to blossom into The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The creative genius that would produce these great works lay untapped. In this library, he would find the first key to his astonishing creative drive. In his first term, he came across the Book of Finnish Grammar. This book remains in the library today. Just about a 5-minute drive from the colleges Tolkien attended and taught at, you can find his home at 20 Northmore Road. The house is a comfortable 1920s 8-bedroom house in the suburbs of Oxford. Despite having no special architectural qualities, the house is to get the extra protection from alteration or demolition that listed building status confers because of its historical importance. For it was here between 1930 and 1947 that Professor J.R.R. Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and virtually all of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There is a blue plaque on the front of the house saying that Tolkien resided here for 17 years. All good things must sadly come to an end. J.R.R. Tolkien died on September 2, 1973 at the age of 81, only 21 months after his wife Edith passed away. He was buried in the same grave with her at Wolvercote Cemetery in northern Oxford. On the tombstone, you will see the names Luthien and Beren. Beren is a fictional character in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth legendarium. He appears in the Silmarillion as well. He is a human, and his love for the elf maiden Luthien is central to the Tolkien's legendarium. These two names being added to the tombstone shows us Tolkien's true love for his wife and his alternate fantasy creation that we are lucky enough to have with us forever.